Full and Bloom interview with Quiet Riot vocalist Kevin Dubrow. The original interview was conducted right before Kevin's death, and the audio has been transferred from cassette. I've remastered it, re-EQ'd it, and I've updated the video. Also, I wanted to let you guys know, for those of you who enjoy the 2 to 5 minute video clips that showcase highlights from the interviews, I know it pissed some of you off that I would post those videos on this channel. The shorter clips are done for people like me who don't have time to listen to a full-length podcast, but always have time to listen to a 2 to 5 minute highlight clip. If you're one of those people that like the shorter clips, I launched a brand new YouTube channel yesterday that will just feature the shorter clips. So the little 2 to 5 minute clips will no longer be posted on this channel. The new channel is called FIB Clips. FIB is in Full and Bloom. There's a link to that YouTube channel in the description. If you're one of those people like me that want to hear the shorter clips or just hear highlights from the interviews, click that link, click the bell, subscribe to the channel, and I'll start posting videos over there weekly.
How does it start to really come together as Quiet Riot? How do you find Chuck Wright?
Well, Chuck Wright and all those guys were just basically the evolution of Dubrow.
Okay. Even Carlos?
Even Carlos. I mean, the last guitar player for Carlos was a guy named Bob Steffen, who was in a band with Chuck Wright. But Bob, who was a great guitar player and a good guy, had a hot temper, and I wasn't going to deal with anybody's hot temper because Randy Rhoads, the best guitar player I ever played with, didn't have a hot temper. I was going to be damned if I was going to play with anybody who was going to have an attitude issue. So Bob got fired right before we got Carlos. We got Carlos, we got a record deal. So Carlos happened to be in the right place at the right time. It was really a timing issue more than anything. Because Carlos wasn't supposed to be the guy. It was supposed to be Danny Johnson, who now plays at Steppenwolf. That's who I wanted. And Frankie wanted Carlos. And I said, I don't give a shit who it is at this point. I just want on the bars, and I want a record deal. And Chuck Wright had been the guy who was in Dubrow at that time, but then when Randy died, we were in the middle of making the album was to later become Mental Health. Rudy wasn't happy to stay with the Ozzy band anymore, and he asked if he could rejoin the band. We said, sure, because he brought a lot of credibility to the table. He brought a name value, and he was a good showman.
He does that after you guys are already signed?
Yeah, and in the middle of recording the album.
Oh, okay, that's right, because Chuck Wright played all the bass parts on
Not all, no.
Or most of them?
Yeah, it depends on what song, yeah. Rudy playing some stuff. Actually, some stuff like Come On Feel the Noise. Chuck, the song was tracked by Tony Cavazo, Carlos' brother. Then Chuck put the bass on there. And then Rudy replaced Chuck's part. Songs like Don't Want to Let You Go is when Chuck is on bass there, and then Rudy replaced it, and the playing was not right, and so we erased Chuck's part, so we couldn't remix it, so we had to use the demo mix on the album.
Wow.
Yeah, we could never remix with Chuck's bass part because the idiots erased it. So if you go to the master tapes, you're going to hear Rudy's bass on there, but he's not on the record.
Unbelievable.
I mean, and then they tried to do it with Bang Your Head, and I loved the way Bang Your Head turned out with Chuck on it. I saw there was issues with Rudy in the studio. I'm not going to go into them, but there wasn't good issues. There were issues. So I said, just leave it the way it is. Don't touch a fucking thing on it. It sounds great. The Bang Your Head, the demo mix, and that's what's on the record with Chuck on it. Yeah, I mean, we didn't even remix it. We didn't redo anything. Just that's with Carlos, Chuck, myself, and Frankie.
And then Carlos's brother was like in Hurricane or something.
Yeah, that was after Quiet Riot. He was in Quiet Riot or Dubrow, one of the last versions of it all. So him and Chuck were in and out of each other at the band at the same time. Carlos's brother was there out of convenience, not
he wasn't really seriously considered.
No.
Okay.
It happened to be around at a time when Chuck was out. Chuck was in and out. I mean, there were issues there, not musical issues, but there's never been musical issues with Chuck. He's always really, really good.
So like drug problems, you mean, or something?
No, just loyalty issues.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah, nobody had drug problems back then. Nobody had any money.
I was going to say, yeah, nobody could afford it.
Right? No,
right.
Drug issues didn't come until after we became stars.
Yeah. So Carlos signs, and you guys pretty much get a deal immediately?
Within a year.
Within a year?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything stand out from like the day you sign with?
There was problems all the way down the line with the record label, with Spencer Proffer, that Pasha label.
Well, I've heard some terrible things about that.
Just nightmare issues. Real greedy, a greedy guy, a bad guy, not a good person.
He produced the records as well, right?
Yeah, he did some nice things, some bad things, but not a good person. Not a person I have any fun. Nothing good to say about. Nothing so fun memories.
Any cool, sucked, brilliant moments come to mind on the Mental Health recording sessions?
Well, they did Come On Feel the Noise, pretty well documented. I was thrown out of the studio because I kept making faces. I didn't want to do it. And I got a nice hamburger when they cut the basic track.
You did what now?
A nice hamburger, it's Astro Burger, when they cut the basic track. I wasn't even there. Was thrown out of the studio. Yeah, because I hated it. Still don't really like singing it. It was an interesting record to make. There were some nice moments musically because we had I mean, we were shown how to do some things we had not known how to do. The first time we had a big drum sound. First time we had a funky rhythm section. Spencer didn't know anything about hard rock guitar, so that was a nightmare trying to get them to get the sound on the guitar right and trying to get the guitar to be a dominant part of our mix. And Spencer didn't get it. Producer Have My Baby by Paul Anka. That was his rock background. So you can imagine where you assess somebody's credentials. It was difficult. Guitar was never loud enough. But musically, there were some nice vocal moments. I remember some things, that's where I really had honed my style in as far as that whole screaming kind of a thing I was doing then. And I remember that it was, we did like Love's a Bitch and Bang Your Head. I remember hearing the sound of the voice, hearing, well, that's really a distinctive thing I didn't really have prior to that Spencer definitely had focused me on.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you kind of found your voice in that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
In the making of Mental Health. That's when I found that sound, really. I was just encroaching on it during the making, and then I think that Spencer had definitely helped that happen.
Now, where did you record it?
Pasha Studios.
Oh, okay.
Melrose and Gower in Hollywood. It's now right next to Astorburg. It's now like some sort of mini mall or something. It was basically a toy studio. I mean, it was really not much in the way of a studio, but the guy who engineered the records, Dwayne Barron, was really for the time was brilliant and managed to get a huge sound out of what was basically just the barest primitive tools that we were at our service. I mean, not really much at all, even compared to for those standards, for 1983 or 1982 standards, rather.
Now, were they backing it much? Did you have much of a budget? Do you remember the budget?
It was done on available time. In other words, it was done on when there was no one there for paying full card rate. We got in there when the studio was open.
Oh, so there was no real budget at all.
No, there was no budget at all. But still, the best things come out of that, We had a big budget to make the third record. All we do is blow and screw it around.
Right.
So, there's a reason why people who are poor sing the blues better.
So once Mental Health comes out, how long does it take before I can't even remember.
It was out March of 83, entered the charts at 186 in Billboard. And November 26, 83, peaks at number 1.
Okay, so it took a while to kind of build.
Yeah, you don't see that happen much anymore.
And then it's just chaos for you, right?
Yeah.
Once the record's done, do you hit the road?
Yes, absolutely. We hit the road right away.
Okay, do you remember who you toured with first?
Scorpions.
The Scorpions?
Yeah.
And then how long are you guys out on the road?
We're on the road the entire time for a solid year.
A whole year?
Yeah. Scorpions, then ZZ Top, then Loverboy, then Iron Maiden, and then Black Sabbath. And then Judas Priest in England.
Now, anything stand out from any of those tours?
Priest was great. Amazing.
Priest was?
Yeah, amazing. The best band of all the bands we played with, that's for sure.
Really?
Yeah, no two ways about it.
Why, is that just the way they treated you guys?
They did well, and they were also the best band.
Oh, yeah.
Big gas. It blew everybody else away. There was no comparison.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, did Mental Health come out before Pyromania?
No, after.
Okay, and then the onslaught comes where everybody's getting signed.
Yeah.
Now, you guys open up the floodgates on it, and I think I read somewhere on there that a lot of the resentment sort of came from not necessarily piss at the guys who were making it, but the fact that you guys had signed such a shitty deal.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
Do you receive anything off the record anymore?
We had none of our publishing.
And still don't?
No, still don't, yeah.
Unbelievable. You just signed it over and...
Yeah, we get 10% something is better than 100% of nothing.
And does it change by the time you guys go in to record Condition Critical? Do you get to renegotiate since you sold so many freaking copies?
We wanted to, but we didn't have a super strong management. So no, it didn't change. That's one of the reasons I was real pissy too.
Now, I knew you guys had sold a ton of records of Mental Health, but I didn't realize it said 6 million copies.
Yeah.
And that's just in the States, right?
Yeah, correct, yeah. I had done multi-platinum in Canada and Mexico platinum.
You have any idea like what worldwide sales are?
No, I don't. I tried to think about it. Not only that, not only were we not being paid on things like publishing that we signed away, then the mother label, let me put it this way, both labels, the Pasha label and the mother label, all did some creative bookkeeping. And the old saying is once the books are cooked, you can't make them raw again. So it was impossible to, without spending $100,000 on a forensic accountant. I never think about this. It just makes me mad. But, Spencer Proffer has bought houses many times over on money that was basically off my black ass, if you know what I mean, for lack of a better word. Or mine and Frankie Benelli's. Songs I wrote and worked that Frankie Benelli and I did.
And you still get your mechanical rate.
Look at our mechanicals, yeah.
Okay.
But now, when the peak selling years are over, it's not. And, I got to be honest with you, when you have an album that sold as many records as Mental Health and went number 1, we never got a check for $1 million.
That's terrible.
Over. Nobody, we never had the big bucks that anybody thought because we did sign it away. It's not like we didn't know what we were doing, okay? So it was not a fair deal. When it came time to renegotiate, he wasn't being fair about it. He didn't have to be. It was his option. But he could have been a mensch, and he could have been, or it could have been the asshole he turned out to be. Everybody knew he wasn't starting. It wasn't a big surprise turned out to be the piece of work that he was.
So when you sign over your rights, it's just strictly just to make sure you get a record out?
Yeah, because he was a deal breaker with him. He wasn't going to sign it. It was his available studio time. He had a little boutique label that was part of Sony. It was all of his toys. So there was really no negotiating it. He tried to get a part of our merchandise too, and that was a deal breaker for us. Why should you get a piece of merchandise? You have nothing to do with that. So he was a bad guy. That's why I keep saying, something I have rotten apples, but again, I would never think about this had you not brought it up.
Do you guys get to headline any gigs?
With Queensryche and Axe opening, we tested the water, so to speak, in 1983 in the States on a few, maybe 2 weeks worth of shows. Sold out most of them.
Really?
Yeah, and having about one album's worth of material to pick from that people know, and when we weren't really ready to headline, even though we thought we were. Yeah, we did some headlining shows.
Are you straight up doing headlining gigs when Condition Critical comes out? Okay.
Except for the occasional $100,000 festival date. But yeah, we were headlining Condition Critical. That's when the rot really started to set in.
And you guys are making tons of money at this point. I mean, even though you're not making millions.
No, not as much, because again, we were stupid because we could have kept our expenses very high with the touring. We had a huge live show, and we kept our, the lifestyles weren't really ridiculous, but our expenses were getting stupid. And nobody could really reel it in. We were doing the same thing everybody else was doing back then.
Right.
But we didn't have as long a career stay as someone like Motley Crue did, where they continued. The difference between us and Motley Crue really was the fact that Nicky Sixx was much smarter than we were in the sense that he saw that for them to have longevity, they had to have hit singles. So he was all about writing hit singles. We were raised on Led Zeppelin and Humble Pie that we were an albums band, and we didn't see the writing on the wall. Those times had been long gone. And Nicky was smarter than us because he saw those times were gone. That it wasn't about albums, it was about radio singles.